And welcome to the next edition of Chocobo Chasers. I am G. I'm joined by the Chocobros, Eric and Dash, and we'd love to extend a special welcome today to our special guest, Jesse Pimentel. You may recognize Jesse from both Resident Evil 7 Biohazard and its sequel, Resident Evil Village. Jesse actually stars as Lucas Baker in Resident Evil 7 and Salvatore Moreau in Resident Evil 8. You can also catch Jesse in his new film, Hippo. So Jesse, it's awesome to have you, man.
Hey, thanks, man. Thanks for inviting me on.
Yeah, this is an awesome experience. You're actually our third Resident Evil alum that we've had on this show. You're our first kind of from our some of the more recent games, so definitely awesome to have you. So as mentioned, your newest release, Hippo, just barely saw the light of day for the first time. What was that experience like for you at Fantasia Festival?
Oh, it was great. It was great. We got a great reception. Hippo's kind of a like a John Waters, maybe Todd Solondz-esque, really dark comedy that my friend Mark Rappaport, who I knew from a film I did called Pledge, that IFC distributed. It was a horror movie. He got money to make this other movie he wanted to make called Hippo, and so he called me up and he had a part for me. And what's good though is the movie. The movie. It's pretty good. It's pretty funny and pretty odd. And I guess Rough House Pictures, which is the company that's run by Danny McBride, David Gordon Green, and Jody Hill, got a hold of it. And so those guys watched it, and then I guess it culminated in them coming on as producers once they saw it and became fans of it and stuff. So I guess David Gordon Green called Mark, my buddy who directed it, and was just raved about it to him. And next thing you know, those guys were producers, so that helped a lot with like getting the sales of it off and stuff. UTA came on board to rep it for the sales distribution part, and so it's going really well. And then the premiere of the film went great. People thought very highly of it. Yeah, we sold out both days. We got I think we're like, we got good reviews. I don't know what it is on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't think it's enough reviews yet to count, but out of the reviews we've gotten, we're sitting at certified fresh so far. That doesn't. Awesome. I don't think it counts until it really, really gets released.
Right. Yeah. No, that's absolutely awesome, man. Dash, you wanna follow that up?
Yep. So with the role of Lucas Baker, that was quite the wild, sadistic character. So did you do any kind of like prep work for it, or take any inspiration to try and portray him?
Oh yeah, definitely. I just like, I went to YouTube and I just started watching people who were murderers, because all I knew about, like, when they called me up for Resident Evil 7, it was all under a code name. They didn't tell us. I didn't know it was Resident Evil 7 until they had already released a trailer, and then someone showed it to me from the game and was like, "Here's the game we're in," and I was like, "Oh." I thought it was this Japanese game they were making that I was never going to see again, So when I got the audition, it was just to play like a serial killer, and so I wasn't sure like about Resident Evil or anything like that. So I just did, okay, I'm playing a serial killer, read the script, kind of got a sense of what he was like, and then went on YouTube, found some serial killers, listened to them talk about death. And there was this one guy, and he just kind of like made sense to me. And so I brought that into the audition. However, as the project developed and as they got me, once they cast me and stuff, he came out a lot more wilder and a lot more like unhinged, but it was kind of written that way. And that was seeming to be the direction that the guy who was directing it, I can't remember his name, but the Japanese guy, because it's like we have Capcom, which they're over in Japan, right? And they kind of watch the whole thing, and they kind of dictate what they want, and then we have like a ground director, a guy named Naveed, and so we had him a little more subdued, not as maniacal, but just kept getting pushed, and then we just got that level of maniacal and just went with it for the rest of the way.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Eric, why don't you follow that up, man?
Got to be a part of what is probably the most storied horror video game franchise. And kind of the last couple games before 7 and 8 came out, it kind of had turned action a little bit, but this one kind of went back to the roots of horror. Were you kind of in that process where they kind of broke that down for you, how they really wanted to make it scary again?
Well, it's obvious to me it was supposed to be a horror, you know. I mean, like I didn't know it was Resident Evil, you know. So in my mind, we were just making a horror video game.
Yeah.
So like I treated it like I would treat any horror. It was never presented to me as much of an action thing. And then when I found out, and then I did a little research, and then I kind of realized, oh, I see what they're doing here. They're going back to horror. Like it made a lot of sense on all the stuff I had been working on more so. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I get it. Okay, so like it wasn't supposed to be like an action game. This is supposed to be like the hills have eyes or silent, like stuck in one location trying to get out kind of horror. I thought that was pretty cool. You know, I thought that was you know, most times when people are struggling, their inclination is to go bigger or something like that. But usually the right answer is to scale back. And I think that was kind of smart of them just to scale it back and turn it into a smaller, you know, like kind of one location horror, you know, especially after having such sort of like grandiose games, I guess, that kind of veered more into like the action and conspiratorial sense of it, you know, just like old fashioned horror. And and once that happened, you know, I was stoked to be a part of it. It made a lot of sense to me, and it seemed to work. I knew it was going to work once they said that, you know.
It was definitely a welcome return there too.
Yeah.
How did it feel
I'm
when
happy
you
to be
found out it was
part of it.
Resident Evil?
Yeah.
I guess it was a bit of a resurrection for them, so I'm glad that happened.
Eric, I why don't you repeat that?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's how did that feel when you found out it was actually Resident Evil?
I mean, I was stoked because, man, I'm just like a working actor, dude. I just like got out of acting school. You know, I was in acting school and then I got out and I did like one indie film, and I'm just sitting there in LA trying to get a job and submitting to everything I can. And I didn't have an agent at the time. They just I guess they couldn't find the guy they wanted to, so they put a flyer out to anyone, you know. And I happened to submit for it, and they called me in and cast me for it. So once to learn that it was like the job paid well, which I was stoked on, because I was like, oh, cool, I'm gonna make a little money here and get to act. What a foreign idea to me. But then actually seeing that and going, oh, cool, like, you know, I don't know how to say it. You know, it's like, okay, cool, maybe be a notch on my belt. Maybe this will show people, you know, like in the future when I'm auditioning for stuff or whatever, that I am not, you know, that I belong, and just kind of that kind of stuff, you know. It's like a lot of it comes down to like when you meet like you're like, you know, like once you get into rooms, you realize they're not as daunting as you think they are, you know. And it's like, oh, so this is like a massive franchise, and I just worked on it for the last 2 years. And if you had told me it might have meant something. But since they didn't tell me it, I felt fully confident and was like, you know, letting it rip. And then I was like, okay, like you're a fine actor. You can work on these sort of projects. You can work on live action ones, video game ones, whatever, you know. So it was actually a nice moment for me, just kind of realizing like, okay, like this can be the beginning of your career as a professional actor if you so choose. You know, you're not barking up the wrong tree.
Dash, why don't you go next then?
So with two of your few video game credits being part of one of the most iconic video game franchises in the industry, you could say that you have a good foot in the door to come back into it. Are there any hopes of doing more games in the future?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'd take whatever they got thrown at me, but you know, I just kind of, the difference is, you know, it kind of screwed me is that I moved to New York from Los Angeles, and that's where a lot of that stuff is filmed, out in LA and then in Canada. And it definitely kind of took me out of the video game running a little bit, but it put me more into the film and TV situation, which is going well for me. So I guess it worked out. But sometimes I do wish I was back there so I could be working more on a lot of these video games, because I probably would have worked on some more of them because of just the people I know. But yeah, of course I'm open to it. I'd love to be in one. I could tell you that Resident Evil isn't the only big franchise that I auditioned for, and I didn't get the part for one of them. And I was a little bummed about it. But yeah. So like I've been up for stuff, you know, like that kind of thing. But right now it just seems to be going in the well, right now we're on strike, so I guess nothing matters. But you know, right now it seems to be more in the film and TV arena, you know, just like with what's going on. But no, yeah, I jump back. God, I wish all the time they'd hit me up for something, you know. I love doing that stuff. Yeah, it's a blast, you know.
Any particular franchise you might want to get into? if you did get called up for a video game?
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, I like the one I wanted was, it was the big guys at the superhero guys.
Oh,
Ooh.
Avengers?
Okay.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Or
so I was reading for one of those guys, and I and that's why I was a little bummed I didn't get it. But I would say if I had my druthers, it would probably be more like one of those Call of Duty games because I just know some people that have worked on it. And so like their experience and, like what it was like for them it just sounds like rad, and it was in Vancouver. So they get to go on a nice, cool trip. And, it's like all those behind the scene things that you like don't think about, right? You just think like in gameplay only, but like actually it's like, well, if you work for Call of Duty, they'll pay you more and then they guarantee sessions and, and you can be working out in Canada as opposed. And so it's like that kind of stuff also really starts to matter.
Yeah.
When you think about it. So like, yeah, like as a fan, probably the Marvel guys, but as a worker, probably Call of Duty.
yeah, two definitely great projects to get into, I would
Yeah,
say.
for sure. Absolutely. Of course. Yeah.
Eric, you wanna go next?
Before Resident Evil, did you play any of the games, or were you a fan? Or do you play games at all, really, or do you just mostly just?
Nah, I'm not really. I didn't really grow. Yeah, I didn't really grow up playing video games. I mean, I played Madden. We had Madden, and
Yeah.
GTA 3 on PS2. My dad used to call it killing. That's just like he's like, oh, you guys play killing. But no, man, I really wasn't a big video game guy growing up. But it also kind of, it wasn't the market that it is today.
Yeah.
That like Resident Evil kind of introduced me to all that. So if I was younger today, I probably would have been a little more. But no, I really wasn't, and I wasn't that familiar with Resident Evil either. But once I became familiar with it, I was happy to be a part of it for sure.
That seems to be kind of everybody's experience who's kind of had that opportunity. Dash, why don't you follow that up?
All right, this is going to be a fun question. So, you are in a horror setting and you have to go up against your two roles. Who would you rather go up against, Lucas Baker or Salvatore Moreau?
Shit.
And how would you survive?
Damn. I guess I'd probably rather go up against Moreau because I feel like he can be easily manipulated, like through words and actions. Like he's bigger, and I know he can turn into a monster, but he's not as brilliant as Lucas Baker is. Lucas Baker is actually a bit of a mad scientist, and like it's like one of those kind of guys where like if you make a move thinking you have the upper hand, he might have known it was coming the whole time, and then you find out you're actually getting your head chopped off. So like I think Moreau, because I think like he kind of wears his heart on his sleeve, and that probably would tend to give there's an opening somewhere in there to like kill.
Yeah. Eric, you wanna go next, man?
You got to do the mocap for Salvatore in Resident Evil Village, correct?
Yeah, that was on me.
Okay. What was that like?
I started with like an audition. She called me and was like, and I was living in New York at the time, and she was like, hey, my friend is a producer on it. She's like, there's this part. It's really crazy. I think you'd kind of be the right guy to play it. Will you come out here and audition because they need to see you because it's a weird part? And then so I sent the tape in and they liked it. And then I flew in for one day and I did the audition. And I had like a physicality in a thing I did. Kind of like Ron Perlman's character in The Name of the Rose. That was like one of the references we used. And then but then once I got the part, just kind of working on the character, figuring out what kind of guy he is. And then once the physical part of it came, I wore something on my back, like that was like a weighted pad, right? To kind of help me get into that right.
That like hunched over kind of posture. Yeah.
But then like after wearing that for a couple of days, I kind of like figured out how I needed to stand. And the thing is, it was kind of messing up my range of motion in some of the shots that we needed, where you kind of had to cheat. So then after that, we were able to like take it off, and I was basically able to like replicate still the same look because I had been walking around in it for 2 days. And then so like for the rest of the shoot, we just did it like I just mimed it basically.
That's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was uncomfortable, man. It wasn't like, oh wow, I worked so hard. It was just like it's like what happens when you have to crouch over a little bit for an extended period of time, for sure.
So this one's actually going to be our last question. This is probably a lot more lighthearted than some of the other stuff that we've been talking about. So you're a huge animal advocate. If you follow you on Instagram, you can see your dogs, Jeff and Millie. How long have you been into rescue, and kind of how did all that come about?
Well, I've always been thanks for asking, by the way, man. I've always been a dog guy. I've always been an animal person by far. That's just like kind of in my nature. And then I guess I was in Los Angeles, before Resident Evil and everything. Jeff, my first dog, he's about 10. We rescued him, and I brought him from LA to New York, and now we live in Pennsylvania. He's been with me from the get-go, right, since he was a pup. And then when I met my fiance, we got a second dog, Millie. And the rescue we got her from, we just kind of hit it off with the people, and they asked if we could be transporting for them and doing stuff. So then we kind of jumped into like actually helping with the rescues and doing all that, and like kind of learning how to volunteer and what it goes into. So then, one day if we, strike it big, man, if I make, get cast as some big ass dude for a 5-picture deal, I can use some of that money and buy a ranch and put a little animal shelter in it. But like, we're just, I love animals, man. They're just the best. And they, I think that as humans, we kind of have this disgusting thing, like where we just kind of like, create things only for ourselves, and animals are again, more collateral damage of that. And it's like, it's not much, it's not, I wish I could do more, but at least like, at least Millie and Jeff, my 2 dogs, landed on their feet. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, you out here breeding dogs left and right, doing all kinds of crazy shit, and then just like losing them and treating them like they're not even living things. It's just, we just love it. We love doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's our MO. So, at least like, but honestly, Jeff, like, I've had him since he was 10. So I kind of like hesitate to call him a rescue dog, since I've had him for so long. It's like, I had him since he was a puppy. I don't know. He's been pretty coddled his whole life. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, man. And anytime I can get involved with any sort of like animal cause, or especially when it comes to dogs, just because I have the most experience with them, I try and get involved with.
That is absolutely awesome. And we're all pretty huge animal supporters as well. We're all cat dads here. I have a dog too as well. So it's it's awesome. Well, hey, we also wanted to give you a chance to plug in, and I know that obviously, like you mentioned, the strike is going on and everything. But we also want to give you a chance to kind of plug in any projects or anything that you kind of wanted to talk about. I know we talked about Hippo a little bit at the beginning of the show. Any projects you wanted to talk about though before we go ahead and we end it tonight?
I mean, nothing really to plug. Just keep an eye out, because I directed my first short film, and we're working on building a production company out in Pennsylvania, and you got to have good content. So our expensive calling card is going to be our short film, and now we'll put that. We're almost done in post for that, and then that'll be into the circuits. But just keep an eye out, because the goal is to keep making more films out here, more in the name of Hippo. So like, if people want to kind of see, Hippo's a good place to start. That movie coming out will be a good place to start, and where we kind of hope going forward with this kind of irreverent comedy, dark comedy that we do, sort of a brand.
Awesome. Well, we'll be sure to go ahead and link your socials when we go ahead and launch the episode as well, just to make sure that everybody can follow you and kind of see what you're working on as well. Jesse, we want to thank you so much, man. This has been absolutely amazing. We really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us and talking about your experience. We're all huge fans of your work, and we're excited to see what you do going forward, man.
Hey, right on, man. Anytime. I appreciate you guys reaching out to me.
All right. Yeah. With that, we'll go ahead and we'll call it on this episode, and thanks everybody for listening.
Thank you.
Thanks.